Welcome to A Change of Heart podcast. I'm your host, Angel Walston. And in this space, we navigate life together. We ask the hard questions like, what is the truth you haven't told? But most importantly, we grow together. And sometimes that leads to a change of heart. Hey everyone, welcome back to A Change of Heart podcast. Welcome back to all of the returning listeners. Welcome to the first time listeners. Hey girl, hey. Today we are going to be talking about really just coming to terms with your right now, like where you are right now, and allowing yourself grace and the space to, I don't want to say grieve what was or what could have been, but accepting just the right now and navigating that in a way that is not self-deprecating and that is not comparing it to where you feel like you should be, where other people should be. We're going to talk about it, okay? But before we jump into that, we have a question of the day. So given the topic for today, I wanted to do a question of the day that forces us to think about the positive. And so today's question of the day is, what is something that you really like about you? Don't put too much pressure on it. Don't overthink it. But what is something that you really like about you in this season? Something that you are proud of yourself for, something that you are just excited about or that you really like in this season that you're currently in. So something that I really like about me right now is I like the fact that I am prioritizing my mental health, not necessarily self-care, but we're talking about what we like, not about what we're lacking. So I like the fact that I am really trying to embrace this soft girl era for myself with just finding things that just really makes my spirit feel good, things that make me happy, things that bring me joy. I feel like this is probably the most intentional I've been. And I really like that I am prioritizing that and that I am intentionally trying to seek out things that are fulfilling, things that make me happy, and things that are cultivating joy in my life. So that's what I like about me right now. You know the drill. Leave your response in the comment section, or you can answer on my stories at Angel C. Walston. So we are talking about really just coming to terms with where you are, because we are technically in the we are in the second quarter of 2023. And a lot of times as you are in a space where you may not be where you want to be, or you're in a space where things didn't work out as planned, or you had unexpected surprises that maybe were not good surprises, you can find yourself in a situation where you feel like time is moving really fast. You feel like you're behind. You feel like you are missing out. And it can be difficult to come to terms with what your reality is when it doesn't look like what you hoped for. And we can put ourselves in a situation where we just become so frustrated in our right now, in our current space, because we feel like it shouldn't be like this. It shouldn't look this way. I had plans for X, Y, or Z. Now it's changed. You feel like you're on a detour. You feel like you are lost. You feel like I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing, where I'm going. You feel like you're failing. And I think that there is beauty in your right now, even when it doesn't look the way that we have planned for it to. And we can lose sight of that at times. So I just kind of want to talk about that, because I know that there are a lot of people who, you do your vision boards, you make your New Year's resolution, you do all of these things to try to manifest or set up this life that you want. And life happens. And you can put yourself in a position where you become just really discouraged or frustrated in your right now, because it's not how I envisioned it to be, or I've done the work. That's my favorite one. I've done the work and I don't see the fruit of my labor. And sometimes the fruit of your labor is present, because sometimes that fruit is character building. Is not the outward expression that you were hoping to see, but it very well could be doing something on the inside of you. It may be healing some things in your heart. helping you to get rid of some thoughts, some mindsets that you needed to leave behind. And so I want to talk about it because I do think that we can get stuck in the feelings and emotions of this ain't it, and this isn't what I wanted it to be, or this wasn't what I was expecting it to be. And it can be frustrating and it can be hard to come to terms with. So let's deep dive, guys. So one of the areas that I feel like a lot of people struggle with that causes them to be in a space where you just kind of wrestle with where you are right now is dealing with comparison. And I feel like that is just such an ugly monster that can plant so many seeds in your mind to make you feel like you're behind, to make you feel like you've been overlooked, to make you feel like you are doing the work and it doesn't matter, and to make you feel like it's not fair. And not to say that all of those things are incorrect, because it very well can be true in certain circumstances. But a lot of times we are focusing on what other people are doing or where other people are, and we end up feeling like we are missing the mark. We're behind. We're not where we want to be. And sometimes you do have to ask yourself the question, I'm not where I want to be, but in comparison to what? Like what is that comparison that you've allowed to take root in your mind? Because a revelation that I had recently that like really put things into perspective is that comparison has a way to make you feel like you're failing or you're behind in the place that you're actually supposed to be. Did y'all catch that? Comparison has a way to make you feel like in the position that you're supposed to be in the place that you're supposed to be in right now, that place makes you feel like you're behind. It makes you feel like you're failing. It makes you feel like you've been overlooked. It makes you feel like you are left behind because it doesn't look like what other people are doing or what other people are experiencing. And we can put ourselves in a position where we step outside of the space that we're actually supposed to be in, where we're covered, where we have protection, where we are actually in a place for us to be watered, for us to grow, for us to be healed, for us to be nurtured. We can step outside of that zone, outside of that space, to then walk into a lane that was never actually created for us. We ain't got no kind of instructions. We have no directions. And your GPS signal is dead. Like, you're not supposed to be over there. And we don't realize how we can allow comparison to take root so deeply into our thoughts that we look at where we are, the space that we're actually supposed to be in. To get to where we want to be, we don't realize how we can allow comparison to make us feel like my rightful position, the place that was meant for me, the place that was created for such a time as this, that I'm supposed to be in, feels like failure. It feels like disappointment. It feels like frustration. It feels like anger because it doesn't look like what they're doing over there. And when you get into that mindset, it can put you in a position where you start to feel like you're not good enough. You start to feel like, well, they got it because they are X, Y, or Z in comparison to me. It can put you in a position where you become jealous, where you become envious, and you end up stalling a lot of where it is that, a lot of what it is that you should be working on, that you should be growing in to get you to where you ultimately want to be, because your eyes are fixed on what everyone else is doing. And I know that it can be challenging, especially, listen to me, especially when you feel like you are doing the quote unquote right things, when it feels like you are deserving of, when it feels like I've put in the work, I've put in the time, I have put in the money, and I have not seen the fruit of this. I know that can be frustrating, but we also have to be willing to open our mind to accept that getting to point C may not be A, B, then C. It may not be this straight path like you thought it would, or it may not just be one path. A lot of times we miss that we're actually making progress because we don't view where we've come from as progress, because we're so focused on the fact that I haven't arrived yet. I haven't got to the destination. I haven't got to where I'm trying to be. So we overlook the growth that has taken place. We overlook the things that we have overcome. We overlook the fact that the way that you would have popped off 2 years ago, you don't even respond in the same way. You overlook how far you've come because you're not yet where you want to be. And that can be a challenging space to be in because you don't want to become stagnant, right? So you don't want to get into a position where it's like you're not growing, you're not moving, you're not going anywhere, but you also don't want to be in a space where you're always chasing the next, that you miss how far you've come, because that's when you can put yourself in a position where it feels like nothing is ever good enough. It feels like you just overlook the progress that has been made, especially when you're comparing it to other people's steps. So you feel like because Sister Spanx over here, she got to her point F in 2 steps, and you're over here working the steps one at a time. And you're like, why does it seem so slow for me? Why does it seem like I'm behind? Why does it seem like I'm not getting accepted? Why does it seem like I'm not moving further along? But maybe the path that you're on is the path that you need so that you can sustain when you get there. Maybe the path that you are on is necessary because there are people who you need to connect with along the way. Maybe the path that you're on is necessary because there are resources that you needed to get there along the way. And so I want to encourage you to not allow yourself to allow comparison to make you feel like you are behind, especially when you're in the space that you're supposed to be in, when you're at the table that you're supposed to be in, when you're at the position that you're supposed to be in, because nothing misses you. Nothing that is for you is going to miss you. So if I'm where I'm supposed to be, even if it feels like it's slow, even if it feels like I'm not making progress, even if it feels like I'm not where I want to be, if it's for me, it's not going to miss me. So even if it takes me a couple of more steps, even if it takes me a little bit more time to get there than the person over here who got there in 1 step, 1 minute, whatever it might be, if it's for me, it ain't gonna miss me. So I don't have to try and rush anything. I don't have to try to force anything because I'm walking in the mindset that if it's for me, it's mine. So I don't have to make it happen. It's already happened. It's already for me. So all I have to do is make sure that I'm in position, that I'm where I'm supposed to be, so that when I get there, I can walk fully in it, but I can also stay in it because it's for me. And I think that when we are looking at other people and our focus gets shifted to other people, we then try to pick up all these other things. We end up carrying all this extra weight. We end up allowing things to attach to our spirit that was never supposed to be there. But because we're trying to walk in someone else's path, we're trying to make somebody else's story our story. Your story is unique to you. And it doesn't need to look like anyone else's. Your story is special because it's attached to you. And so instead of focusing on what everyone else is doing, come to terms with where you are right now and realize that you're not failing. You're not behind. You haven't missed the mark. You haven't lost anything. You're not going to lose in the end. It's already for you. You just have to believe that it's already for you. And instead of walking around with this mindset, I got to make it happen. I got to do this. I got to do that. I got to chill, relax, and act like it's already yours. My pastor preached something. This was a few Sundays ago, and he was just talking about like a person who has peace. They're not easily moved. They're not like, you can give them bad news. You can tell them something that most people would be like shaken by, and they're gonna be like calm, cool, collected. They have peace, so they don't have to worry. If you tell somebody who is like anxious, someone who is easily worried, easily stressed, you give them bad news, they pace in, they walk in like they talking to themselves, they gotta call everybody, they gotta make this like big deal about it. Have peace in your heart that you're where you're supposed to be. Have peace in knowing that God has not overlooked you. He has not forsaken you. He has not turned his back on you. He has not chosen everybody else, but said, oh, I'm going to leave them over here to just figure it out on their own. Have peace in your heart to know that you truly are right where you want to be, even if where you want to be right now is disappointing. Even if things fell through that you were really hoping for, that you were really excited about, even if something unexpected happened that you did not plan for, that derailed your plans for this year or for a time period, just know that you're right where you're supposed to be, even when it may not make sense, even when you may not understand the why or the reasoning behind it. There's purpose even in the quiet times. There's purpose in the still times. There's purpose in the moments where it doesn't feel like the hustle and bustle. There's purpose in that as well. And I don't want you to lose sight of that, or where you are right now, what is taking place right now, because it doesn't look the way that you hoped for, or it doesn't look like what someone else's something looks like. There's purpose in where you are right now and what you need to be doing right now, not just where you're going to. All right, so moving along, the next thing that I want to talk about is one that I feel like I always say throughout every season of the podcast. This comes up, and this was something that I harped on a little bit more last season, that I just want to come back and reiterate this thing, and that is to give grace to the version of you who is still becoming. We can be really hard on ourselves, y'all. We can be so hard on ourselves. And the funny thing is, as women, I feel like we can be very nurturing. We can be very encouraging. Women are going to be your biggest supporters, okay? We're going to show up for you. We're going to tell you, you can do it. You better believe in yourself, girl. Like, we're going to root for you. We don't have that same energy when it comes to ourselves. And it's funny because I think I mentioned this in one of the earlier episodes that I was listening to the Bald and the Beautiful podcast. And they were talking about how, like, would you be your friend based off of the way that you talk to yourself? Like, would you be cool with that? And I feel like it's a resounding no for majority, not everyone, but the way we be talking to ourselves, like, we be talking to ourselves mad crazy more often than not. And I feel, and let me not say I don't want to like make this a broad statement, but for a lot of us, we be talking to ourselves mad crazy. And if somebody were to pull up on you and talk to you in the way that you talk to you, you would feel some type of way. And you would be like, you got me messed up, because what we not about to do is just have a drag fest over here. So I think that it's important for us to understand that as you are navigating this space of becoming the person that you've wanted to be, as you are working towards something, as you are doing the self-work and everything, please extend grace to the version of you who is here right now, the current version of you, not just this girl who you're going to become. Because listen, Linda. You are that girl right now. It's not just when you get to that place. It's not just when you finally arrive. It's not just when you are looking this way, you're acting this way, you got this much money, you got this much accomplished, you got this relationship, it ain't about that. You're that girl right now. What we have to be reminded of is that the version of you is always evolving. So if you think about it, if you're like really honest with yourself, I believe all of you can say that the version of you right now, even though she's not who you ultimately want to be, even though there may be things that you are working on, even though there may be things that you are still learning and growing in, you have to acknowledge that this version of you is still better than the version of you from 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, for some of y'all a year ago. Like, you have to acknowledge the work that has been done. You have to acknowledge that although you may not be where you want to be, and yes, you're a work in progress, there's still things that you want to do. Don't lose sight of how far you've come, because we can have this mentality that where I am is never good enough. And that is not good for your mental health. That is not good for your heart, because you're always going to be trying to create this version of you that is everything except for who you are. And you don't learn to love who you are. You can love who you are, flaws and all. You can love who you are, acknowledging that, yes, I still have room to grow. There's still things that I need to work on. There's still things that I need to improve. There's still things that are problematic in my life, and I'm working towards them. But I also want to be intentional about liking this version of me, and not just always saying like, I need you to be better. I need you to do better. I have been in a kind of a tug of war here recently, where on one hand, I do want to listen to the podcasts, I was about to say read the books. I don't be reading books, y'all, but listen to the audiobooks, read up on things, follow the people that are giving tips, advice, encouragement about evolving and becoming better and fixing this about you and changing this, and struggling with wanting to consume that content while also not wanting to always feel like I am a project that has to be fixed. And there has to be, you have to find the fine line between that, because you will put yourself in a position where you're always trying to fix you. You're always a problem that has to be fixed. So it's like you get all these self-help books, you do all of these things, and it's still going to feel like it's never good enough because we're always going to be evolving. And I think that it's really important for you to be able to be self-aware enough to know that there are areas that you need to work on, things that you need to improve upon, while also accepting that you're human and you don't just want to always be a job. Essentially, you don't want your self-care, your mental health, your progress to always be this job that you're working on. Because if you think about it, if you were in a relationship, a romantic relationship or friendship, whatever it might be, and your friend or your partner was always telling you something that you needed to fix, always telling you something that you needed to work on, always telling you that something wasn't good enough. They never really acknowledged or celebrated when you did something good or something right. It was just like, okay, well, you need to do this. You did this right, but you didn't do this right. It's always like, you can't just sit with like, that was good, period. It's always, that was good, but I should have done that. No, you would not be okay in that relationship. You would not be okay in that friendship, because it's like you feel like you're never good enough. And some of us have that same mindset when it comes to ourselves. We feel like what we do is never good enough. We feel like where we are is never good enough. We feel like we're always in a state of striving. And let me say this, it's nothing wrong per se with always being in a state of striving. But it can become detrimental when you're always in a state of striving to the point that it becomes self-deprecating on your way to get there. And I think that we don't even realize how we would deem a relationship like that as being like mentally or emotionally abusive, because it's like you're always pointing out my flaws, you're always telling me that like this isn't good enough or what I need to do. And it's like, how much more different is it when it's like it's you who is telling that to you? So I do want us to really be intentional, and I'm including myself in this. I want us to be intentional about working towards being whole, being healed, being our authentic selves. Absolutely. But also leave room for fun. Also leave room for fun. I really, really, really want to encourage you all to find ways to have something that is fun for you. It's not something that you have to critique yourself on. It's not something that you have to measure whether or not you're successful or not at it, whether or not you're doing a great job at it, but something that is just fun for you. I love seeing people who go and do karaoke and can't sing a lick, but they be out there going in. It's like the sportsmanship for me. It's just like they just go up there and they give it their all, and they will perform. They will sing off key. They might even throw a little dance move in there, put the mic out to the audience for the background vocals, and they have a time. And I love that for them. And I want to encourage you to find something that you don't have to measure it by, am I doing it right? Am I doing it good enough? Is this successful? Like, find something that really just brings you joy, something that really is just fun for you while you're on this journey to becoming the woman who you've always wanted to be. Because if you just focus on just always becoming, you lose the grace aspect. You lose the aspect of yourself that can be kind when you fail. You lose the aspect of yourself to even recognize that sometimes when you don't do something right, or you don't do it in the way that it doesn't go the way that you thought it was, to realize that that's not always a failure. Just because it didn't go as planned, it doesn't mean that it's a failure. And so I just want to encourage you to give yourself grace for this space. Give yourself grace for where you are right now. Not just when I get to where I want to be, that's when I'm gonna da 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 da. No, be kind to this version of you because you're still learning. And y'all, listen, the greatest thing that I have learned as a whole adult is the fact that I will be 35 this year, y'all. And I still don't feel like I know what I'm doing. Like, I still don't feel like I know what I'm doing with my life. I still don't feel like I have like a hold on this thing called life. And I think that we had this mentality when we were younger that, oh, when I get a certain age, I'm gonna have life figured out. And it's like, baby girl, who told you that? Like, who lied to you? And I think something that I've said before is that I feel like I'm able to give my parents more grace now, realizing that like y'all ain't know what y'all was doing and y'all had to raise kids. Like y'all didn't have it all figured out, but you were literally just trying to figure it out because that's life. You have to figure it out as you go. And it's really important to understand that a lot of us our inner child is freaking out on the inside sometimes because it's like, I don't know what we're doing. I don't know where we're going. I didn't think it would look like this. Like I figured like when I was 30, I was going to have this figured out. I was going to have this planned out. Everything was going to look like this. And here you are at whatever your big age is. And it's like, you're still learning. You're still figuring it out. And that's okay. Sometimes you have to just kind of like quiet your inner child and be like, it's okay. We're going to be all right. We're almost there. Like that, your inner child is literally like, are we there yet? Are we there yet? You got to be like, we're almost there. But while we're there, we're gonna have some fun. We're gonna do things that really just help to cultivate joy. All right, the last thing I want to share about just coming to terms with your right now is don't reject the unexpected. And I know that can be really challenging, especially when sometimes the unexpected are negative things that you could not have planned for, whether that's death, injuries, loss of job, things like relationships ending. But don't reject the unexpected. Sometimes when things happen that hit us that are unexpected, it just feels like everything stops. It just feels like everything just comes to this pause that you don't really know how to navigate or where to go from here. Don't allow that to make you feel like you need to shut down. Don't make that a reason to isolate yourself. Don't allow that to be a reason to make you feel like, oh, this has just messed up everything. Because sometimes the unexpected is a part of the plan too. And we may not be able to see the reason behind why. We may not be able to see the purpose in it. And listen, there are things that have happened in my life years and years ago that I didn't understand or realize the purpose in it until 5-10 years later. So I'm not saying you always gonna get it. I'm not saying it's always gonna make sense immediately. But at some point, you will likely be able to look back on those things that you weren't prepared for, that you didn't plan for, that you didn't see coming, and see how, although that sucked, although that was not what I wanted to happen, although that's not what I had planned for, and I felt like it put me on a detour, it actually set me up. Sometimes the detour is for us to take a pause. Sometimes it's for us to learn something. Sometimes it's not always like a super deep meaning either. Sometimes we just need to step away for a little bit and to just regroup, to get our thoughts together, to get our spirit together, to get our heart together. And sometimes you go on a detour to get you back to the place that you need to be. Because you think about if you've ever been driving and there's construction, an accident or something, you'll have to get off of the road that you're on. And it's going to take you on a detour, but the detour will ultimately get you back to the path that will get you to your destination. And sometimes we can look at detours as being something that is just completely taking us in the opposite direction of our destination. And that can be a thing too, especially when you're trying to force something or when you're trying to make something happen. You're trying to create a lane on a highway that's 3 lanes and you trying to make a 4th lane. And it's like, ain't nobody tell you to drive on the shoulder. Like, nobody told you to do that. Now you got a flat tire. Like, yes, those are detours that is kind of like, I got off course. But ultimately, divine detours, they set you up to get back to the path that you ultimately want to be on and that you need to be on. But sometimes we can look at detours as being a negative thing, and you don't even realize that the detour was protection. Because if you kept driving down the road that they were trying to like tell you, hey, don't come this way, I need you to take this detour, but you kept trying to force it, you kept trying to go, you can get injured, you can get hurt, there could be death. Like, there's so many things that could happen as a result of you trying to make something happen when you're supposed to be going down a different path that will ultimately still get you to your destination of where you want to go. But I just wanted to share that because I've just been seeing a lot of people just in looking on social media who have been dealing with severe unexpected injuries, and dealing with different losses and just different things that I know can feel like setbacks and can feel like, you know, I had this whole plan for this year. I was doing this with my business. I was going to do this, all of these different things. And then you have this unexpected something that comes up and it just feels like you hear the brakes screeching and everything just comes to a standstill. I want to encourage you to not reject this part of your story as well, because I know that it can feel like, why is this happening to me? I think we've all have had one of those moments where it's like, why is this happening to me? And it may not make sense. You may not know what the reasoning is behind it right now, but don't allow the detours, don't allow the roadblocks, don't allow the things that feel like they are setbacks to make you feel like you did something wrong, you missed something because it wasn't supposed to be like this. Maybe it wasn't supposed to be like this as far as your plans and how you envision things, but maybe this is exactly where you're supposed to be. Maybe this is exactly how things were supposed to be for whatever is next to come, for everything to fall into alignment in the way that it was supposed to. And I know that that can be really challenging to receive when you are dealing with unexpected things that feels like it really just rocks you to your core, or it really just like upsets things that you had, the plans and everything that you had made. I know that that can be frustrating, but I want to encourage you, don't reject the unexpected. Try to find peace even in that, even when you don't understand, even when you don't know, because there really is purpose attached to everything. We may not always be able to see it fully in the moment or ever at times, but there's always reasoning behind something. There's always purpose, even when it doesn't make sense. Purpose doesn't always make sense. And although that can be hard to come to terms with, it can help us as we wrestle with different things that happen in life that are unexpected and unplanned for. So that's all I have for you all. I hope that this was helpful. I hope that you were encouraged. Make sure that you take some time and share this with a friend. I hope you all have an amazing week. And until next time, don't forget, be whole, be healed, and be authentic. Bye. Thank you so much for tuning into A Change of Heart podcast. I hope you were encouraged, and please take a moment to share with a girlfriend, and don't forget to download the episode. Lastly, I would love to connect with you. You can follow me on Instagram at Angel C. Walston and at A Change of Heart podcast. Have an amazing week, and don't forget, be whole, be healed, and be authentic.